All right, everybody. So I'm going to get started with this presentation, with this webinar. Thank you for joining and attending. If you have any questions, like I said, please feel free to add it in the chat system here. But in the interim, I'm going to get started on this webinar and kind of go over on how our topic goes. So thanks for attending. This is the Townfolio webinar. We're City Data as a Service, and I'll go over the agenda very quickly. So, just give me a sec here. My thing's not working. So what I'll do is go over the agenda here. So what I want to do is give a quick background on the company, as well as go over some examples of a lot of the custom data that we've seen from communities across the country in Canada and the US. And then also kind of go into a high-level quick chat on how you can build your own chart if that's something you want to do, and how to upload a CSV and create your own chart out of that. And then basically, I'll address any questions that people may have. I probably won't see the questions off the bat. I'll see them at the end of the webinar. But please, if you have a question, add it in the chat system on the Uber conference, and I will tackle it at the end of this webinar. So what I want to introduce is the founders of Townfolio. So I'm Davey, the guy on the right, and my business partner, Riley Iverson. We're both from small towns, and we co-founded this company about three and a half years ago. Funny enough, the picture that you see in the background is me and Riley speaking at a conference in Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. It was an amazing experience, and we've been very fortunate to have traveled globally to see all the opportunities that exist in economic development across the world. What we realized, though, is as we worked in this industry, we realized that communities needed to take a better pulse of our cities. And we do that by using data. And data is challenging because it's so hard to find across various spectrums on the World Wide Web. These are pictures of our company, or of our team. We're a team of about 7 people right now, and we're constantly growing. We've been growing year over year. So I think we have probably one of the best teams in Saskatoon, where we're based, and I'm very excited to be working with this awesome group of people. The other thing too is what we normally do and what we're known for is we're known for taking data from various data sources, whether it's from dusty shelves to like very friendly APIs, and we consolidate them into a data warehouse. So these are some of the spectrums of data sources that we'll try to pull from, and then we consolidate that data and make it useful in the tools that we produce. So in a sense, we have an API that powers an analytics platform for about 38,000 cities in Canada and the US. And we bundle that into an annual subscription, which some of you are already on. What we're known to do, though, what we started initially, though, is that we took something known as the community profile and wanted to automate it. So I used to work as a site selector, helping companies expand, European companies specifically, expand into Canada and the US. And a lot of the times, if I didn't want to pick up the phone and talk to an economic development professional, what I would do is I would try to find something like this, the community profile. Now, this is one built in 1987, and we have an actual copy of this, and it's quite the beauty to look at. But what we wanted to do is what I realized is when we started building this product was that a lot of economic developers were manually producing these, and it's a very time-consuming process, as I imagine a lot of you do already know. So with limited resources and small budgets, we wanted to create something that was a bit more cost-effective that can help improve workflow for economic development professionals. And that's what we did. Is we built this digital version of the community profile where we automated a lot of the data, and we estimate that we save economic development professionals about $18,000 worth of time and money. Actually, I was just speaking to this individual, Chris Jackson from Overland Park, a team of about 3 people, and he was telling me on average he spends about a week per quarter updating and managing his community profile. And he said using our tool would save him about 800 hours per year, which is about a month's worth of work, which is quite significant. As you guys may be familiar with, This is our platform, City Data Service, where you can browse by cities and places. And what we're popularly known for is embedding that data that we produce in charts and embedding that onto your own municipal website. So it makes it more engaging for your users. And then we also have the tool for compare and data. Now, what I wanted to really dig into was the whole context of this whole webinar. And what I want to do with this is actually outline various examples of communities that we worked with across the country on how everyone has some data that is a bit unique to them and how they've got that data into the Townfolio platform. So what I'm going to outline is some interesting examples of this so you guys can follow along. So one of the questions I get asked a lot though is how do we get all this random data into our platform? We kind of do an ETL, extract, transform, load process where we take it from multiple sources and we store it on a raw database server and then we transform it. And that allows us to dynamically be flexible with a lot of the data that you're going to be seeing today and in this webinar. So what I'm going to start with is an example of something that we did with the Nova Scotia provincial government for their, they call it Regional Enterprise Network clients. So these are RENs, that's a short form, RENs. And what these are, they're regional bodies that there's about 6 of them or 7 of them that encompass that represent regions within Nova Scotia. And they use that as a investment attraction arm, small business arm, etc., etc. Now, what they wanted in particular was something called an LMI dashboard. And this LMI dashboard would be something that they would use to report to the province, locally, to businesses in terms of activity that's going on, business activity that's going on in their community. And this data that you're seeing here right now, population by age, all this data was provided to us by an economist that we worked with that the province hired on to produce these projections. So you can see there's population by age group, population change, births and deaths, births per 100 deaths, net migration rates, employment, labor force rates, employment by industry. You can break it down to see like if there's growth in certain industries like services, or just focus on public sector, employment insurance recipients, job vacancies, workers' compensation claimants, K-12 school enrollment, university enrollment, college enrollment. So what did we do with this particular client? What we did is we worked with the economist who had all of the connections to all the data sources that were available, and he introduced this to various bodies, and we discussed with each body whether that was the Workers' Compensation Board of Nova Scotia, and then they would provide data in a format that was feasible, that the economist was able to use for his own research, and then in turn provided that data to us. And that data, if I had the exact raw data, it was a mess. It was not the most friendliest to use, and it wasn't clean. But what's great though is that he was able to provide us that data, and we were able to transform it and make it useful for the general public. And then now what these RENs do, these regional enterprise network people do, they take these images and they download them as charts, embed them on their website, like the Truro-Colchester Partnership for Economic Prosperity, which is another REN in Nova Scotia. And as you can see, our data powers their website as well. The other thing to keep in mind is that these boundaries that was produced for these communities were custom boundaries. A lot of them were various counties that we had to amalgamate ourselves, and then we did it on their behalf, and it saved them a ton of time. This project just went live probably a couple of weeks back, and if you're interested in seeing it more for yourself, what I can do at the end of this is produce a link to all the examples that I'm showcasing here. So that's an example of a big regional enterprise project that we did with Nova Scotia Province and how it worked with the RENs. Another example that might be interesting on a more smaller scale is Mission, British Columbia. So we're expecting to get the new data from vicinity jobs at the end of this year. But what Stacy Crawford in Mission, BC, he's also known as an early adopter of technology in the province. And what he does is he worked with a lot with vicinity jobs data. And these are like positions, top 5, like labor data specific to his area. Vicinity jobs, what they do is they scrape data from various job sites and then they produce NAICS codes and give you a sense of what's most popular in an area. So what he wanted was to get this data onto his website as a way to showcase business job activity. So what he did is he introduced us to the individual who owns vicinity jobs. He provided us then a CSV, which we then took and uploaded into our system, which in turn produced 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 custom charts. And this was an interesting data set that was unique. No one else on the platform does this except for Stacy. And he's seen some interesting usage on it from businesses and whatnot. So again, I'll share this with you guys afterwards to get a sense of what that looks like. Another popular example, depending on the area of the community and depending on what is most popular, agriculture has been interestingly a requested one in parts of Ontario and Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And we took some of the agriculture data from the census and added it into these charts. So you see farms, land use, farm capital value, total gross farm receipts, farms by industry, major crop fields. These are things we're able to add in as well. There are a lot of other data sets out there regarding farm data or crop yield data. We're able to get them. They're just a bit difficult to extract for some of them. I know in Manitoba they have crop yield data that comes out on a monthly basis, but it is difficult to extract. So some of this data is easy to do and some of it's not easy to do. But what I want to showcase here is that if agriculture is a big industry in your particular area, we can add this to your profile as well with a small cost. The other example I want to showcase was in Ontario. So Jeff here from Gravenhurst, he started something called a business survey. And what this business survey does is it surveys businesses in the local area to get a sense of like what are the small businesses looking for. What's the business climate? Are they satisfied, dissatisfied? Are they reinvesting in their businesses? Primary markets, staff totals. This is an interesting way to get a better pulse of if you're a smaller municipality. He does this every year, and what's interestingly enough is that he works with a lot of the other communities within his region, like Lake of Bays, who also do the exact same business survey. So what Jeff has made open to a lot of people. If you ask him about the survey, he's happy to share it with you guys. So Lake of Bays also does a survey for their own community, and you get a sense of like business longevity, the number of employees working in their businesses in the area, the served markets, is it local, regional, national, international, what business sectors in particular. So a lot of people sometimes try to rely on the business register, which is issued by StatsCan, but for smaller markets, it's not the best data set. So sometimes it's best to take matters in your own hands and try to get the best data out there. So as you can see, Jennifer here surveys her businesses in the area every year, and it asks general questions. Have you created new jobs? And you can see the increases or decreases from 2016 to 2017. Physical space. Are they leasing? Are they owned? Are they home-based businesses? So as you can tell, in Lake of Bays, there's a lot of home-based businesses outside of the commercial-owned spaces. Investment and growth indicators. Have they expanded floor space, purchased new equipment, made physical improvements, changed or expanded product lines? Are they profitable, right? And it's not like we're asking for what are your exact revenues, because most businesses may not want to share that, but just asking general qualitative questions. Has your revenues increased or decreased, right, from the previous year? And you kind of get a sense of how your business economy is doing. the business climate. Are they happy with the environment of the business climate? Satisfied, very satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied, very dissatisfied. So you kind of get a sense between the trends between 2016 and 2017. So this is a very interesting business survey that Jeff produces from Gravenhurst. So if you're interested in learning more about that, talk to Jennifer, talk to Jeff. I'm sure they'll be happy to share more information with you. But this is data they sent to us, and we just added it into our platform, and it's a great indicator of business health. Another example is St. Joseph, Missouri. They are a client that just joined probably in the past few weeks. And for those who are American, you guys have a lot more data than the communities in Canada, but their economy data is a very popular data set. Cost of living index, which is produced by the Council for Community and Economic Research. That's done only in the U.S. at the moment, from my understanding, or larger cities in Canada. Fred economic data, which releases a lot of interesting data on total per capita real GDP, per capita personal income, and then obviously any state-related associations, GDP by industry. This is data we're able to openly get because this data is accessible via API on US sites. So this is stuff we're able to aggregate and extract and visualize for our clients. Another example that I wanted to showcase here was the city of Chestermere. So we've done a lot of interesting work. A lot of people ask us, a lot of the data on your platform is just census data. And I say yes, it is for now at this point, because it's the best data set that's out there for a base. But if you really want to take it up a notch, we can do that. So in Chestermere, the city of Chestermere, they produce a municipal census every year. And this is a census they do themselves. It's municipally run. And we're able to put that data in and visualize that instead of any of the census information. So that's what we did here with the city of Chestermere. Now, a lot of people have asked me about projection data, because the census is done every 5 years here in Canada. What other alternatives are there? And some of the big names you hear about or being thrown around are like Manifold, Environics, MapInfo from Pitney Bowes. These are all good sources of information if you have access to them. One of the ones that we like to work with is an individual named Tom. He works for an organization called Metro Economics. Some of you may or may not have worked with them. If you are interested in getting projection data, it's something we can provide at a small cost, and it would be reflected within the profile afterwards. But what I want to show here was, we're not just census information here. We can add other layers of information. In Saskatchewan, we have a small city called the city of Martinsville. They use health data. So there's health. They call it eHealth population. It's produced by the health region. He uses that number as population figure, and we can do that here as well. And then at the same time, what I want to showcase with Chestermere is the ability that we've used other data sets and try to find as much other data sets out there, whether that's temporary resident permits, new permanent residents, etc. On top of that, though, what's interesting with Chestermere is that he actually provided us some other interesting information as well. Side note, we were able to get vehicle registrations from the Transportation and Provincial Government and driver's licenses. We're able to get this information because Alberta has an amazing open data portal, which is very easy to access. Not every province has this information, unfortunately. They do. It's something we can hit up and acquire as well. But what I wanted to showcase with Chestermere was that they do something interesting with their building permits. Instead of taking like the usual total number of permits issued or the total value per building permits, what they do is they do an average, and I think they use it more as an internal tool to give a sense of like how are they doing? Are they making money from these permits? Are they growing or decreasing? And it gives a bit more of a different snapshot. So here's an example of residential permits. I mean, it looks like there's big decreases, increases, and decreases. But sometimes if they just want to look at single-family average residential permits, they can, or maybe look at condos. So this is data they've sent to us before, and it's in a very like raw format, if I had to say, based on the data that's being provided. But we're able to transform that data from its very raw spec and turn it into something a bit more user-friendly that they can use for their own reporting. Again, you see average institutional and commercial and minor residential. And at the same time, what was interesting, they actually provided builder stats of the most popular builders that have started projects in their area. And this is coming from the building permit data. So if you want to see, like, in like 2016, Reed Built Homes had got 36 permits, but in 2017 they slowed down. Truman Homes did a ton in 2016, but didn't do anything in 2017. So it's an interesting way of trying to see who's the most popular active construction activity builders in the area as well. So that's really interesting information that Chestermere's been providing us. And also, like, this is by no means complete. They're still providing us data. One that's going to be going up soon is like municipal fires, number of traffic counts, stuff like that. The other thing too I wanted to highlight was, I kind of touched on it before, was like other data sets for like general like population or household information. So Heart of the Peace, which is a community in Alberta, they worked with a company called Cushing Carroll Architecture, and they provided us raw data that they used instead for trade areas and household by income. This is data provided by them, and instead of using any of the standard census stuff, they just wanted to use that instead. So that's what we did, and that is what they wanted to use, for which went in line with some of the economic development strategies that they had for attracting retailers in particular. Another one that I've been asked about, and we see it a lot in the US, is the use of Esri data. Can you get Esri data onto the platform? Yes, we can. We don't buy Esri data, so there's a big difference, and I want to outline that. We will not buy the Esri data, but if you already have a subscription to the Esri data and you want that data visualized into the profile, we can do that. So this is Lansing, Kansas, in the US, and Matthew here has a subscription to Esri data. And he had data that had like the amount of money spent at restaurants, meal visits at a restaurants, top 10 restaurants visited, amount spent on fast food. Like, the breakdowns are quite uncanny. Top 10 fast food restaurants visited, McDonald's. And I will say, being in the US, the McDonald's own the highways everywhere. Subway, Taco Bell, do they eat in, do delivery, drive through, take out? And these are the number of adults visited in the last 6 months. Now, keep in mind, this data looks interesting and robust. These updates only happen about once a year. So Matthew will be providing me the new data set in the coming month on what activity they have going on in that particular area. Another example I want to show is the city of Prince George, Keenan, an example of how a dynamic would work with some of the data that he gets from StatsCan and how we get it into our platform. So what I want to illustrate here was Keenan, the city of Prince George, has a subscription to StatsCan. So for those who know or don't know, how StatsCan works is, if you want to get data from StatsCan, you have to put an order into StatsCan, and then StatsCan will like process that order and then charge you a small fee. So not all data in StatsCan is free, but StatsCan actually charges on a per order basis. So it doesn't matter how many orders you do. It doesn't matter how many orders you do, but it doesn't matter how much volume it is. They charge on like how much work is involved for getting you that data. City of Prince George, they subscribe to that, and they get monthly unemployment rates. Now, City of Prince George is only about, I think, 50,000 people or so. And normally you can't get the monthly employment rates from the labor force survey, but if you subscribe to it, you can. So what ends up happening is, how that dynamic works is, every month, around the 22nd or so, StatsCan will email Keenan something that looks like this. This is the email that they will email you. It's an Excel document attached with no context except for the title that says labor force estimates for the month of 2018, right? Then what Keenan does is he emails me that. and I put it through our program, and then it automatically updates our system, as you can see here. So the December one's going to be coming soon. But I want to show you guys what that data actually looks like. This is what the data looks like. And these are just requests that you had to make to StatsCan. Everyone gets a different look of the document, depends what you order. But he sends me this data, and we're able to get the Prince George data. So what we do is once it runs through our system, it transforms it and puts it into those visualizations. This is just what he gets as an order. If you were to order that from StatsCan, they can manipulate it as much as they want and add as many communities as you want based on the queries that they have to run in order to produce a document that looks like this. So this is just an example. Another one within this one is like transportation data. Keenan provides his data from the Prince George Airport Authority. It's a mid-sized airport. You can't get this data online, but he provides the data in an Excel format that he gets from the authority, and then you can automatically update. It'll automatically update the data themselves. Or actually, I correct myself. Keenan updates this one himself actually because he gets this figure. But it kind of gives you a sense of how it gets visualized and gives some trend analysis as well. Education. I mean, if you have the relationship with the secondary institutions, we're able to put that data there as well, depending on what's in the area or not. But what's also great is that all this data that you see here, all this custom data, if you export it as an Excel, it'll actually show up in the Excel document as well. So like I was highlighting labor force data. Well, if you look here, the monthly employment rates, they're all here as well. So if you're interested in the raw data, which a lot of site selectors are, you can definitely do that for your own business, for your own profile as well. Another example I wanted to showcase was Montreal here. They provided us Conference Board of Canada data, and we're able to get GDP at basic prices, GDP growth rate, GDP per capita, GDP per capita growth rate. Now, for those who are curious on how the Conference Board of Canada data actually works, well, how it works is you actually have to subscribe to it. So Conference Board of Canada will charge you a fee to do projections on your community. For smaller communities, it's probably not the best, but for small, mid-sized to larger, it's not bad. Montreal does it. I want to highlight Guelph from Ontario does this as well. I don't know the exact numbers around this, but I can provide that information to the appropriate contacts, which you can ask afterwards. But they provide us the data, like Guelph or Montreal, they give us that data, and then we visualize it within our platform, and they use it for showcasing growth opportunities. Guelph is an interesting community where there's a lot of customizations. They provide building permit data, and this is the type where it's just the number of totals and number of value. But they want to focus primarily on industrial, commercial, institutional. So they use this and they provide this on a quarterly basis on what's going on in their particular economy. And again, you can download these charts as a PNG or a JPEG and use it for your own reporting within your workflows and whatnot. So I think what I've done here is I've shown you quite a bit of use cases of some of the things that various communities have done across the country and across Canada and US. So it might give you some ideas on how to better utilize your Townfolio. But what I also want to show was like this is a lot of the work that custom data that we worked with. You can also do this yourself and adding and creating your own chart as well. So if you log into your Townfolio, and I'm just going to use Acme, Alberta as an example, you have the ability to control some of these data sets. So give me a second here. So if you log into your Townfolio, you should be able to see a dashboard icon. If you click on that dashboard icon, it'll take you to some various controls. I'm currently in something called chart controls right now. And what you'll see is you have all of these charts here that are pre-built by us, and you can either hide or show them. So as an example, if you want to hide this chart, business sizes, you can go on here, look for business sizes, and just flip this toggle, and it'll basically hide that chart from your profile. I apologize, my internet is a bit slow on my end, but as you can see, that chart is now gone. So these are some things you can do by controlling the visualizations on your chart. On top of that, you're able to create your own custom chart. So it's actually quite simple to do. So you click Create Custom Chart. You're prompted with some basic fields. So what you want to do is we'll create a chart test one. And then we'll just say the source is Statistics Canada. And then I'm just going to say the date is 2018-10. And then I'm going to put it under various sections that we have, and I'm going to put it under companies. And I'm just going to create a basic column chart. And I'm just going to add 3 rows of data. So it's going to be, I'm going to just make this all $, and it's going to be 2011, 2012, 2013, and then I'm just going to go 100, 200, 300. So you can do this, and you can just save that chart, and it'll automatically create a chart at the very bottom here. And then what's great is if you refresh your profile on the company section, you will see the chart there. So you see chart test 1 was created, and then you have a chart visualization for chart test 1. Now that's one if you want to do it manually yourself and just add like small amounts of data. This is good for data that's like maybe a mill rate or a water rate that gets updated once a year. But say you have something a bit more frequent, or you want to add a bit more data. Well, that's why we have the CSV Import Chart. So I'm just going to make another chart, GDP test 2. And I'm going to say Statistics Canada, and then 2018, 10, 10. And I'm going to put it under the company section again, and I'm going to make it a line chart. And then you see there's this button here, it says Custom Chart Data. You can choose a file. So I'm going to choose this data. And as you can see on the data here, it's 3 columns. Variable, year, value. There's a format that you have to follow, and we'll be publishing a blog on how to do this with instructions. But you can open that data, and you can import it, and it'll automatically load all the data in there for you. So you kind of get a sense of like how it works. So then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload that data, and it goes forever for a while, and we're going to press save. Press save. And then if you look on the profile again and refresh it, you should see GDP test 2, and it's a nice little line chart. Now obviously this data is not the most accurate, but you kind of get a sense, and you can play around with it as well. You can like change the chart type. So if you click that GDP test 2 and say, you know what, I want to make it a bar chart or an area chart or a bar chart, you can apply changes, and it'll change the chart type on the profile as well. So then you have a bar chart. Now, obviously, you want to choose a format that looks best for your profile. Obviously, or for the data, I didn't do a good job on that, but in the sense, you kind of get a sense of how you can play around with it after. But what I wanted to do now was just to highlight, these are some of the examples we've been able to do with a lot of the custom data features out there today. And what I wanted to highlight is if you have any questions in particular, you can always just send me an email or my colleague Elijah at townfolio.com, join townfolio.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions that we have or you may have right now.